So guys, the case I've got for you today is the creepy stalker case of Stephen McDaniel. Now get ready because I've got some great footage of the murderer being caught on live TV and also some really bizarre interrogation footage, which I love interrogation footage. So anyway, I hope you enjoy my story today and let's get into it. Stephen McDaniel was born in Lilburn, Georgia, United States, to parents Mark McDaniel and Glenda McDaniel, and studied at University of School of Law, where Stephen would meet former classmate Lauren Giddens. They actually lived in neighbouring apartments. Lauren Giddens was born on the 18th of April 1984 in Tacoma Park, Maryland, United States. Her parents were Karen and William Giddens. She also had two sisters, Caitlin and Sarah. Lauren was much into her education and spent the summer after she had graduated law school preparing for her most important test she would ever take, the Georgia bar exam, which I've heard is really, really hard to pass even for the most educated people. She must have been so excited for what her future held. Unfortunately, the creepy, crazy stalker Stephen McDaniel would put an end to any plans that she may have had. Now, Stephen was certainly creepy and had dark thoughts. He would spend his time searching porn that surrounded violence and torture. He would also search how to commit sexual assault and how to molest a sleeping girl. If that's not creepy, I don't know what is. Stephen certainly liked Lauren, as he had even asked her on a date, and this was after 6 months, but was actually only the second time they'd ever spoken to each other. Lauren graciously declined and stated she would like to remain friends, but she was definitely being polite to try and soften the blow, as she told her actual friends that he made her feel extremely uneasy and very uncomfortable to be around. She knew. She also told her friends that she believed someone had been going through her apartment and that she would get an eerie vibe when she would come back at night. She knew something wasn't right, and I cannot imagine how it must have felt being away from her family, feeling things weren't right and being alone. I mean, it must have been so frightening for her. And I also feel like she downplayed it to her friends, and that really she was actually screaming out for help with these comments. You know, she was just like, I've got an eerie vibe and I feel like someone may have been in my apartment, but really she should have been like, someone's been in my apartment. That's not right. She even thought about moving many times, but unfortunately she never did. Now, what Lauren was feeling was right all along. The stalker creep Stephen McDaniel had actually stolen a master key from a security guard and used it to let himself inside Lauren's apartment on many occasions. He was even filming her through her window. I mean, this guy was obsessed, but somehow he managed to stay low-key about it. And talking about key, why didn't the security guard realise he was missing the master key? And if he did, why didn't he take action on it? I mean, it's quite an important piece of equipment, wouldn't you think? A master key. It basically means it will access everything. It will access every room. You know, it's a master key. So the person who is in control of that key can have full control. So that's not right. I mean, it's so sad because of just how discreet Stephen had managed to go about the way he'd been stalking poor Lauren. She never actually saw him for sure, or even knew he was stalking her. She just had feelings and thoughts that somebody was there. So she didn't know for sure that anyone had been in her apartment. You know, she didn't have actual proof that somebody had been in her apartment. She hadn't seen anything. You know, there wasn't anything left or anything and such. So really, she didn't stand a chance. Stephen had filmed through Lauren's window just hours before this heinous crime. But this night, he also decided to enter her apartment while she was sleeping. I don't think the stalker was prepared for what might happen next. I think it was just an instinct. I need to get in, I need to get to her, sort of thing. Lauren suddenly awoke, unsurprisingly, and freaked out when she saw Stephen standing there. He launched on top of the poor defenceless girl and proceeded to strangle her for around 15 minutes. Apparently, she put up a big fight, which would scratch and claw at Stephen's chest and face, and the ultimate fight for her life. But nevertheless, the monster would overcome her. 3 days later, Lauren's friends would arrive at her apartment and let themselves in with a spare key. And here is the first sinister move that Stephen would make. Again, he was discreet about this. Acting as just another worried friend of Lauren's, he noticed the trio from a window and invited himself in to help. Sicko. They found her main personal belongings still in her apartment, including passport, driving license, and even a mobile phone. And as we know, nobody goes anywhere these days without their mobile phone. So the friends proceeded to file a missing persons report that evening. Now it was clear something wasn't right. Where Lauren? A search party commenced the next morning, and at around 9:40, Lauren's torso was found. Wait, what? Torso? Yep, that sicko had only dismembered the poor, defenceless, beautiful girl after he had strangled her to death. So what did happen after the murder? Apparently, when confessing to police, he said he wanted to make her disappear. After gaining access to her apartment with a stolen key that night and wearing a so-called mask and gloves, he proceeded to strangle the sweet Lauren Giddens until she succumbed and passed away. Do you know just how much strength, willpower, and time it is meant to take to actually strangle somebody to death? Especially someone who was fighting for their lives. I mean, he really wasn't a big dude. It was mainly just hair. So he must have been enraged. I mean, it just shows the intent that he had of killing her. Such rage, that power, along with adrenaline and thrill from finally getting his horrible hands on her, he managed to strangle Lauren for around 15 agonizing minutes. I mean, just imagine that. Some psycho, deranged killer with his disgusting hands wrapped around so tightly, with what I can only imagine was the look of a monster in his eyes. I mean, it must have seemed like an eternity for her. It's just horrendous. 50. Now, the deranged killer waited until the next day and then decided to dismember poor Lauren with a flipping hacksaw. Yep. And this happened in the bathroom of her own apartment. The friends went in the apartment. I'm so confused. He cut her into 5 pieces, and each piece he placed in separate rubbish bags and then just left them in different bins around the campus. Lauren's torso was actually nearly never found because all of the other rubbish bins had actually been emptied that same day, and so would have have been later that day. So this actually was a lucky break for police, a lucky break for everybody besides Stephen. But for police, this was major. I mean, half an hour later, a few hours later, they would have never known what happened to Lauren, where Lauren went, probably never even caught the killer. So it actually was a lucky break. Now, I believe Stephen broke that night because Lauren was set to leave campus in the next few days to get his hands on Lauren before she got away. It does make me question, though, why it took 3 days for anybody to notice and to start searching for her. And when they did, this was her 3 friends. I mean, I guess everybody's different, but I speak to mum. I speak to my mum every single day, And again, I know everybody's different, but I am 31 and I still speak to my mum every single day. But I guess that is different because I've got multiple health issues, so she likes to check on me. Anyway, back to my story. Now, Stephen had entered himself into the investigation from the beginning when he entered Lauren's apartment to help her friends. Emphasis on the. I mean, it's strange how these killers like to purposely choose to insert themselves into investigations where they've committed the murder. But it's actually very common and happens a lot. And I think it's just another sick way of continuing the enjoyment of the crime that they have committed and staying close to the investigation. For many reasons, one of which can maybe be just to keep tabs on the search of the victim. I mean, it's all for themselves, you know, just to be making sure that, are they on the case to me? What do they know, you know? So they insert themselves into the investigation, whether it be by helping to look for Lauren or whatever the reason. Really, what they're actually doing is trying to just... Where you at? Gotta wet the whistle, carry on with the story. But yeah, a lot of murderers do that. Insert themselves into the investigation even though they know that they're the murderer. Strange. Now, the biggest part of all this was when Stephen was actually interviewed on live TV about Lauren and her disappearance. Now, this is where he starts to crack. Not because he was on camera, he was enjoying being on camera. Playing along with how Lauren was his friend and how they're just trying to find her. And now if you pay attention at the start of the interview, Stephen is doing a good job at pretending he knows nothing about Lauren's disappearance and the fact that he has cold-blooded murdered her. By continuing to talk about her in the present tense, I don't think I need that back tense. For example, she is my friend and we don't know where she is, present tense. Also with that comment, trying to blend himself in to the search party and look normal. Whereas the news reporter speaking with Stephen actually refers to Lauren in the past tense. Do I need one of them? And such as, do you know of any enemies she may have had? Instead of has or have, past tense. And what kind of person was she? Past tense. Instead of is she. I feel he does notice this. Like I can see that he picks up on this and he's kind of does a bit of a face at one point. But he just continues on insisting that he does not know where she is and trying to blend himself in just as everyone else concerned for Lauren. Now, this is where I've got the first clip that I want to show you. I love getting all this stuff together for you guys. So I hope I've just enjoyed doing it myself, but I hope you like watching all of this. So anyway, this is the first clip that I've got for you of Stephen McDaniel on the news.
Did you see her hang out with anyone at the time, anything like that?
No one has seen her since Saturday. I haven't seen anything. I mean, you always hear noise outside, but it's just people walking by pretty much.
And she just recently graduated from Mercer?
Yeah, she and I we were both JD students. We graduated back in May.
What kind of person was she? I mean, what did you see?
I mean, she's as nice as can be. I mean, very personable, very much a people person.
Do you know any enemies she might have had, somebody that might want to hurt her?
No, we don't know where she is. I mean, the only thing we can think is that maybe she went out running and someone snatched her. Because, I mean, we went over, one of her friends had a key, we went inside and tried to see if there was anything amiss, but, I mean, she had a door jamb that was sitting right by it, so there was no sign that anyone broke in. I mean, the door was locked when everyone got here. I mean, we just don't know where she is.
Now, the monster even mentioned that there was no sign that anyone broke in and how the door was locked, knowing full well while the door was locked. You locked it. Anyway, he seems to like being interviewed on TV and just talks away until now. This is where everything changes for Stephen. And to say he gave himself away at this point is an understatement. The news reporter then mentions the parking lot, sorry, not pronouncing it right, and how they had recovered a body. And in an instant, life for Stephen, as he knows it, changes forever, and he certainly cannot hide it live on TV. He finds out that he hasn't got away with his crimes as he thought he had, and has found this out on live TV. I mean, this is epic, really, because how many murderers do people catch on live TV being caught out? That does not happen. And I can only guess that this helped majorly in the case against him.
What about in the parking lot area? I know they've been doing a lot of, I think that's where they have recovered the body or whatever they recovered from there.
Body?
Had you seen anything there? Had you seen anything there? I mean, we don't know if this is the same person. You know what I mean? Like, they took out a body there earlier. We don't know if it's the same person or not. So that's how we're trying to ask people if they know who lived there. Are you okay, sir?
I think I need to sit down.
Okay.
Now, after the reporter mentions the word body, Stephen's face, body language, and whole demeanour changed. He repeats the reporter and just states, body. She continues with her questions for Stephen, but he cannot speak. In complete shock that part of Lauren had been found. Well, he looks like he's going to physically pass out. She asks if he is okay, as to which he replies, I think I need to sit down, and then proceeds to sit down on a nearby curb. He isn't playing this part very well. Not anymore. I know he's just found out that his friend may be dead, but to me, this just shows pure guilt. He is freaking out about the fact that he may be found out for it. It's unreal to think he is the killer. He's so comfortable to talk about her until that moment. Now, he actually had to be taken away to calm down for 20 minutes after this part, but then still proceeds to continue with another interview with the same reporter. I mean, it just shows the narcissism in him, really, doesn't it? More than happy to talk, even though he does seem to fake ventilate, I would say, because he soon stops when answering questions. I certainly think the news reporter believes he's involved. At one point, she even interrupts the interview by attaching a microphone to him, as to make sure that we could hear him better. She asks many questions, as to which he just rambles on. I do notice the way he dodges answering certain questions, as if it was like somehow a little hard for him to lie, but
No one had seen her since Saturday because there's not a whole lot of interaction unless we're doing classes.
Right.
And she was doing the online version of it.
You all studied together, though?
We were in, there's two different people, there's two companies that provide it. Captain provides it and Barbary provides it. I signed up with Barbary and I've been doing the lectures that they have in the mornings. She was doing the Kaplan online, so I hardly ever saw her. I would see her go out running, but
What time would she go out running?
I don't even know when.
At night or morning?
I saw her at midday a couple weeks ago. That was the last time I saw her, was coming back from the bar prep on the main campus, because we got moved over there for a week or two.
But she normally would run. That was
Yeah, she ran all the time. She had a group that she would go running with. I don't know anyone that would want to hurt her. She was as nice a person as there is.
Was she moving soon? Did you know anything about her?
Yeah. She was going to be moving out today. She was supposed to move out today because someone else was going to be moving into her apartment in the new law school.
Do you know if she was like, where's she from? Is she from Maryland?
Yeah, she's from up in Maryland.
Put this on you so we can hear you. Is that alright?
Okay.
I'm so sorry. And you can just hold on. Thank you. Yeah, she's from Maryland.
Yeah, I mean, she was from up in Maryland. I mean, all her family was there, as far as I know. I mean, she...
What's going on in your mind right now? Like, what are you thinking?
Why would anyone do this?
Now, he seems to know a whole lot about Lauren. Like when she would take her dog out, where her family is from. He also seems to be crying when he's talking, which I can only assume is purely worry for himself, or just fake altogether. He also liked to mention the names of other people she had been with previous to the murder, as to throw off the investigation towards anyone but him. Next clip.
No one could figure out where she was.
Who was the last person to be with her? You said that somebody had seen her on Saturday?
Yeah, she went over to a couple friends' house, Garen Mueller and Joe Cairns. They live over on Walnut, and they said that she was over there in the morning, and then that was the last time that anyone we've been able to find out from had seen her.
She hadn't mentioned what she was going to do that day or anything?
Joe, he got onto her computer last night to see if she had said anything. She'd sent an email out to some people that afternoon talking about like going out to eat or something.
Now, when he is interrogated by the police, he is completely different. You know, one second he's on the news, he's speaking to this reporter, he's talking about his missing friend, and oh God, if she didn't, I've not put it all in, by the way. I've cut bits down to show you guys, so this does not drag on for ages, and hopefully put the best bits in. But seriously, if they had let him, he would have just literally spoke all night. Until, of course, he found out that he'd been found out. Anyway, when he's interrogated, it's as if he's in some kind of catatonic state for the majority of it. He barely moves throughout the entire interview, which I believe is around 2 hours, 2.5 hours, or at least the main interview was. And when the footage from this interview is sped up, it is actually creepy, creepy. Just to see how little Stephen moves around, like seriously, it's weird. Throughout the entire thing, he mainly just moves his head. And remember, this is 2 hours. There's no drinking of a water. He's gonna get dry mouth. Everyone gets dry mouth when they're nervous, worried, whatever. So there's no drink anywhere, and at times he's being told to put his hands on the table, so he puts his hands on the table, and then he's being told to take his hands off the table. So half the time when you see that, he's being told to do that by the investigators. And when he moves his head, they even say, "Look at me." So he looks at them. Even when they leave the room, he doesn't move. Really creepy. He pretty much denies knowing anything during the entire interrogation, and police questioned him on scratch marks on his face and chest, to which he replied he had made them by himself in his sleep. I mean, come on, these are investigators, murder investigators. They're not going to fall for that. Even though I must say the investigator was terrible in this interrogation. Like, I'm not an investigator, but I can tell you how many mistakes this dude made. But he was not the best interrogator. I don't think they really needed it, though, to be honest. Kind of just gave himself away. I mean, he basically made himself a prime suspect, saying that he made these scratch marks in his sleep. And with this comment, he was therefore asked by police if his apartment could be searched. He reluctantly accepted and was transported in handcuffs to the apartments to commence the search. While searching his apartment, he had a strange collection of different things stockpiled. And I mean like random strange things. So this included swords, guns, toilet rolls, but not full toilet rolls, you know, in case you needed loads of toilet rolls, empty toilet rolls. Okay? Canned foods, like you expected the end of the world or something. A mask made out of women's underwear, not sure what that's meant to protect you from, sorry mate. And quite a lot of condoms. Now, Stephen was questioned by detectives as to why he would even have condoms, because he said in his interrogation that he was staying celibate until marriage. Okay. He said he had stolen them from another apartment, which just gave investigators another reason to arrest him and take him back. He was in the same monotone demeanour. The detective even asked him if he remembered talking with him earlier, because of the strange state he was in. It is unclear if this is an act or some kind of mental breakdown with the situation he is facing. But either way, it's creepy, well maintained throughout the whole interrogation.
All right. I just got to ask you a few more questions.
Okay.
You came down earlier tonight, me and you talked, all right. You don't have any weapons on you, do you?
No.
That's just you walk. What's wrong? You know I'm Detective Patterson, right?
Yes.
Do you remember, put your hands up here, you remember us talking
Yes.
earlier tonight, right?
Yes.
You remember me earlier in the day?
Yes.
When we came down here and talked a little bit and then we left?
Yes.
Okay.
He is so creepy that he even seems to weird out the detective after the detective had leaned in a confident posture to Stephen and then requests Stephen to look at me when you're talking, son. My American accent again. The way the detective is sitting at first is to increase psychological pressure and to command control. After Stephen turns his head, just like one of those creepy dolls you see in scary movies, and fixates his gaze on the detective in turn becomes unnerved. After leaning forward and commanding control and questioning him with short questions in an assertive tone, he suddenly backs away from Stephen, literally in his chair, and starts to question him in a much lighter tone, as if Stephen had actually scared him away. He is creepy. This is very rarely seen, as these detectives are extremely well trained in these interrogations. This is their job, you know. But again, as I said previously, this interrogator or detective, whatever, was useless. Next clip.
About this girl right here. You know her?
Yes.
Who is that?
Lauren Giddings.
Does she live next door to you?
Yes.
When's the last time you seen her?
2 or 3 weeks ago.
Okay. Was you friends with Lauren?
Yes.
Look at me when you talk to me, son. Okay? Was you friends with her?
Yes.
Close friends?
We were good.
I mean,
friends.
y'all were friends, right? Both of
Yes.
y'all are law students. You're studying to be an attorney, right?
Yes.
What kind of law do you want to go into? Criminal law?
Yes.
Civil? Is that what you want to do for a living?
Yes.
Okay. Are you almost finished?
Yes.
Okay. So you don't have too much more to do, right?
No.
All right.
Now, detective is much less aggressive in his manner in questioning before returning subtly to question him stuff like, "You have no idea where she is at?" But his tone remains lighter here, and the detective knows he is looking into the eyes of an insane, psychotic, and most probable future killer, if not stopped. Another detective enters and tries to insert a much more aggressive tone of questioning, but Stephen just remains in the same catatonic state, just answering with mainly a yes or a no, or that Lauren was his friend. Now, the second detective didn't get much further with Stephen, and it was clearly frustrating him at the way Stephen was reacting, or not reacting, should I say. The second detective tried to implement a technique here, and this is called the futility technique, in which someone would state a fact in order to get the other person to come clean and tell the truth. Now, this is as if to imply that we already know the truth. He says that Stephen did not clean up all of the blood in his apartment and he had left some behind. But his bluff is called here because he didn't know that that was true. You know, he was just going on a limb there and just thinking he could use that and implement this technique here and that it would work. But sillily, like I say, useless. Because Stephen knew for a fact that this was false, because he'd actually dismembered Lauren in her own apartment, where he went as far to cut off every single one of her fingers and flush them separately down the toilet. Sicko. Absolute sicko, guys. The lead detective returns after they haven't made any progress and proceeds to ask Stephen non-confrontational questions for a further 30 minutes to see if this makes him talk. But of course it doesn't. He remains in the same lifeless disposition that he's kept up for 90 minutes at this point. They approach him with the fact that everybody has said that he is very talkative, but yet he will not talk to them, and why? To which he simply responds, "I don't know." And it really was, "I don't know." It's like a robot. Weird. Stephen, being a law student himself, was actually smart enough to mention that his DNA would be in Lauren's apartment from when he entered to help search with her friends, in turn making any DNA that they may find null. His hair was found in the apartment, by the way, but that's not a surprise with that bush. But it's kind of like, did he think ahead of time? You know, did he actually really think ahead of time? Because I don't know if he's smart enough to do this, but he used that opportunity to enter Lauren's apartment, sort of not unannounced, but unannounced and accepted in sort of thing, so that, again, any hair found in there, "Oh, I was just searching for my friend. We all were. We were all there searching. That's why my hair's there." Like a dog. Shed everywhere. Now, the second detective tried to act as a friend to Stephen. It's so funny how they change it up. Changing his voice and placing his hand on Stephen's shoulder and repeating, "Let us tell the truth so we can prove you're not just a monster." This didn't work. The detective also repeated, "You hurt that girl." He is trying to induce mental exhaustion here, but it seems to have no effect. He even tries to belittle Stephen by saying that all the people he had stated were his friends, that he had spoken to all of them, and none of them agreed that they were his friends. He also brings Stephen's family into it, mentioning his sister's abusive partner and how his whole family thinks that he's crazy. Again, this brings absolutely no response. I mean, do you think he cares? He's a psycho. After this, his mother would enter the room and Stephen would immediately snap out of his catatonic state. So it's unclear again if it was all faked or a mental breakdown. Either way, it worked, as the investigators clearly got nowhere in this interrogation. But evidence is irrefutable. And inside Stephen's apartment, detectives would find a flash drive with hundreds of photos of Lauren, along with multiple videos inside of her apartment. They would also find a hacksaw in a supply closet. Hacksaw, remember, guys? Which was ultimately determined to have Lauren's blood on. And then, just to really put it to him with the evidence, the exact packaging from that very hacksaw was found in Stephen's apartment. How would you explain that one, mate? When he was confronted with the undeniable evidence, he decided to take the plea deal to avoid the death penalty. He was in turn handed a life sentence without the possibility of parole. That's good. He was being held at a high security prison in Sparta, Georgia, United States. Now, I don't know if that's still where he is, because this is a while ago that this happened, but I really just thought this was just a great one, a great story to cover. I enjoyed doing it and getting the footage together for you guys. Now, prison is certainly the exact place where this creepy stalker monster should be, and I truly believe that he could have been the next serial killer if they hadn't caught him, or maybe he already was. I mean, who thinks to themselves, after strangling someone to death, first of all, just doing that, strangling someone to death, okay, let's take a little hacksaw, usually used for cutting up small bits of metal or plastic, not a human body, a whole entire, it wasn't just her fingers, remember? He hacked her entire body into 5 pieces with this tiny hacksaw, with this little hacksaw. I would say it's tiny. I mean, you wouldn't go cutting a tree down with it, would you? Oh, God. It must have taken forever. Just think about it. Every single finger, her body into 5 pieces, and with just a little handheld hacksaw. He is so crazy and completely sick-minded. And you know what? The only thing I've got to say is, prison for you, pal.
What's going on in your mind right now? Like, what are you thinking?
Why would anyone do this?
Didn't hear anything?
No.
Didn't see anybody?
I just heard something. Maybe I could have helped.
Okay, don't worry.